One of my favorite time periods in history was the classical period. Whenever a game decides to focus on Greece, I cannot wait to play with it and see how it feels. The last game that I feel really tried to get into this mindset of the classical era was Imperator, the Paradox grand strategy game, which pushed us back further in time from the Middle Ages. Well, now we have a new city builder game called Builders of Greece. Does it hold up? Builders of Greece is a new game from Bloom Entertainment and Strategy Labs that has you creating a polis or a city and defending it from barbarians. It has a very vanished look and feel, with you deciding where your city centers are at and then managing the people and then resource collection to keep your city growing. The game also includes a nice additional mechanic for army battles. You can build up a rudimentary army and send them into battle against foes. This is done via a very simple token mechanic where you can move your army across the grid, but it is something that a lot of other games do not have. Other than that, the game is all about growing your city and keeping your citizens happy. As mentioned before, the game has two main modes. One is the familiar city builder mode, where you have a toolbar that allows you to plop down buildings, and as your town expands and grows, your toolbar slowly fills in with more and more things for you to build. As citizens move into your town, you have to manage their happiness. This helps you decide on what needs to be built, but also helps determine how you want to lay out your city. For example, at one point your citizens will want some sort of health service nearby, so you need to be able to have the resources to build that to satisfy their need to keep them happy, and therefore continue to let your city grow. New buildings and mechanics are added as your city grows, with milestones aligning to things like town size. For example, to go from village to town, you need to grow to 1,000 citizens. These town milestones will generally be where you probably stall, as reaching some of these milestones can be quite hard. The second mode is the military mode. You can build up armies, assign troops inside of them, and then send them into battle. It's basic, but it adds a new mechanic to the traditional city builder that most of the people are probably here for. Progression in the game is entirely through city size, or at least as far as I can tell. Your city grows, you'll need to collect new resources, and then your next milestone is to continue to grow to the next city size. The challenge is in the resource management and industrial pipelines, like getting wine from both farms and crockery factories, which requires grape farms and clay pits. The core loop is very much plop down a bunch of houses and then build a bunch of production buildings to satisfy the happiness of the citizens. As you progress to newer and larger polis types, you unlock more buildings. When you trigger a new milestone, the system repeats. Plop new houses, plop new resource buildings, and then make people happy. The big problem is that this is really all there is. There's no sense of sustainability, as you do not have to worry about replanting forests or having your city encroach on hunting grounds. Multiple times I realized too late that my neighborhoods had surrounded a bunch of old lumberjack resource buildings or even a hunting lodge, but the game really didn't seem to care. Short of the barbarian fights, there's little in the way to stop you other than just hitting resource walls. My town would continue to grow until I couldn't bring in enough money to build the things that would keep my citizens happy, or to let me continue to build houses for more citizens. That being said, they didn't seem to mind when there was no bread. Ancient Greece was full of situations where Greeks had to defend themselves from so-called barbarians, and the Greeks were not shy about expanding onto the islands nearby or even places like where Rome would eventually be. This means they were in conflict quite a bit, and the game does try to replicate that. Do not fool yourself though, this is very much a simplistic battle system that I would honestly say is not worth having. You build a small army of a few different squad types, and then you move them into a battle. The interface for them is moving your troops onto a grid, and when I say troops, I mean little token cards, and then taking turns moving on the grid or choosing an attack. There are very basic animations for doing damage, and the winner is basically the group that has troops left on the field. Some barbarians have stronger troops than others, and really this is the only thing that kind of stops you from deciding to go into battle. I would say that this is one of the weakest mechanics of the game. The uniqueness of the game, I think, unfortunately comes down completely to its aesthetic. Though I would hazard a guess that few would be able to see the difference between this and something that might be Roman-focused. At best, this is banished with a classical theme, and I would say the theme is done well. I'm not sure, though, that the aesthetic is enough to really make it stand out. The military mechanic is poor enough that I wouldn't even really bother to consider it a unique mechanic of the game. It feels very unfinished and very unpolished, and it is not a selling point for this game at all. I think there could be some good things in this game if someone were to continue to grow it and manage it, but it seems also like the developers, or at least the publisher, have abandoned this game. I do not think there will end up being anything that truly makes this game stand out, especially since the war mechanic is so lackluster. Most of the difficulty comes down in the form of resource management and money. A lot of the times I would be stuck waiting for money to pile in, but this was not necessarily a bad thing. It's part of the core loop. It does break the flow, though, when you have to kind of just turn the game on fast speed and wait for money to build up. Other than that, keeping the citizens happy did not seem to be that huge of an issue. It came down to building small little local neighborhoods where the citizens could have access to the resources they wanted, like food or clean water, and then having things for them to do. Other than that, it's just waiting and building until you hit a population milestone, and you start the process all over again. Some of the milestone gaps were quite large, and it felt like in many of the cases it would take forever to progress. I do enjoy the graphics and overall vision of the game. I think the assets are well crafted, and it's nice seeing the citizens walk throughout the city. Like with the city building, there doesn't seem to be anything in here that makes it stand out, and short of it being in 3D, there's really nothing that stands out as awesome or cool or visually stunning. But at the same time, nothing is necessarily bad. Some players did complain about stutters and graphics issues, but I can't say I ran into those issues. I did have a beefier machine, so that may have helped, as it did seem to run smoothly on my machine. Unless you are really chomping at the bit for a Greek-focused city builder, I would probably pass on this. At best, it's a standard and mediocre city building game, and at worst it was a slow, generic city building game. The war mechanic is nowhere near enough to want to draw someone in, and I think it would probably turn a lot of players off. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I don't think this game will do much in the way of making you want to try and build Greece in a day either. Hello again, Internet. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. And if you have not already, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? The button's right there below the video. It greatly helps the channel, and it lets you know when new videos are posted. Since you're here, why don't you check out another video? One is suggested here for you, so go ahead and click on it. If you want to watch me record these videos, you can find me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/DragonmanTank. But no matter what you do, thanks for watching. Goodbye, Internet!